Welcome back to the Wake Up Mission Show.
Well, today we are very honored to have the host of Truth Talk News. Howard Nema is a radio host, writer, videographer, musician, and the co-founder of We Are Change Connecticut. And I like We Are Change, at least here in California, We Are Change really back our Nightingale 2010 campaign for governor. Howard is also a contributor to Exposing Satanic World Government. Very fascinated and interested in what he has to say about that. His YouTube channels have received more than 100,000 views per month, and he currently broadcasts live every Thursday, so that's tomorrow, 3 to 5 p.m., and we'll find out if that's Eastern, which I believe it is, Eastern time. Here we are. Howard, thank you so much for being on our show today. We really appreciate having you here. Howard? Well, I see him on the board, but for some reason, I'm not hearing him. So, Randy, see, my co-host disappeared. The guest has disappeared. So I don't know where everybody is. So we'll just talk. I thought that the Bjork song was very apropos for today. The double meaning there, of course, not only declaring your independence, but the Confederate flag being such an issue. No, it's a false flag. And I say raise your flags, raise them up high, because like we just said, the death of America really did happen today. So since Howard is gone, and I guess when he comes back we'll bring him on, go ahead then, Randy. What is your business news?
Well, I don't know what's going on with the system. He was on. We did a check. Everything sounded good, and he was red on the board. I don't know why. Couldn't hear him.
I don't know, but anyway, it doesn't matter. Let's just go ahead and what business news do you have that you would like to share until he comes back?
Oh, okay, sure, no problem. Well, let's see. You know, the other day I talked about, you know, there's the very real possibility that China would demand.
Randy, I don't know where you went. This is crazy. This must be Blog Talk. Some Blog Talk issues, perhaps? Randy? Well, okay, there you are. That's so funny. What is going on here? Maybe it's because, hey, who knows? Maybe they're trying to sabotage today's show. They don't want the truth to get out there. I don't know. I'm not saying Blog Talk is doing it, but maybe there's some sort of interference.
And it's like the damn board has gone crazy.
I know. I don't know what it's doing. I'm watching it, too. None of you can see it, but just to let you know, it's like there's a little ghost in the machine here. The mics are going hot, that we're going blue and not hot, and we're not even pushing anything. So it is very bizarre. We had Howard here, then he went away. I tried to bring him in. I don't know what happened there.
He's back now.
Okay, Howard, can you hear us now? We already gave you the introduction. We've already done that.
I heard you like a clear bell, but you couldn't hear me. It doesn't surprise me. I don't know. This has happened to me quite a bit with people that I've interviewed. You know, and sort of the stuff that I do. It's weird. I do have sort of an issue with the COINTELPRO. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but it still exists.
We talked about it yesterday on the show. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a big issue. You know, again, I'm friends with people like, I don't know, Dr. Leonard Horowitz and Sherry Kane and others that are really working to expose the COINTELPRO and people like, you know, Alex Jones and or others, Anthony J. Hilder. There's a lot of them. And what they're doing is they're controlling it's a controlled opposition to the truth movement. Now, these are just friends of mine. I became friends by interviewing them. I interviewed these people maybe like 10, 20 times each. I don't know, something like that. I've been doing this since about 2010 pretty intensively. And yeah, there is definitely a history. You can just go through the archives at Truth Talk News and just put in, hacked broadcast, hacked Truth Talk News, hacked Truth Talk News, sabotaged. It happens constantly. So it doesn't surprise me that now that I'm going on another place, that they would play this kind of a game, because I'm one of the people that they look at.
Me too. When I ran for governor, they used to take down our website all the time. Our webmaster, I know, listens to the show. They do whatever they want. You're right. Interference is a real issue, and we've experienced it too. Yeah.
We were just streaming, like music and, whatever else. Or when the music's streaming, nothing ever happens, So
right.
It's like, it's just same thing with Skype, everything else, all of this stuff. Interference. Crazy things have happened on live broadcasts, and I've gone on the record with this many times. I've been hit with some sort of neurological weapons that actually, imagine this, Shalene, that you're about to think of something that, a thought that's coming into your mind that you're going to verbalize, right? And all of a sudden, just like an eraser on a blackboard, it's just erased right in front of your eyes, and you don't remember what you were thinking. They hit me with it. It was intense, and it's on. Actually, it happened during a broadcast, during a live stream broadcast, which was video broadcast, and that's also in the archives. I mean, it's all on record. The stuff they've done. I mean, incredible stuff. Different type of low frequency weapons, ELF weapons, and all sorts of things that they do. The chemtrails are also targeting people.
Right.
That you'll notice if you're an activist, and you'll shake your head because you'll wonder why every time that there's a chemtrail, it's flying over your house. You'll wonder why. How can that be? Now, if you think I'm crazy, you people think I'm crazy, anybody out there, I challenge you to research the information that's discussed on shows like The Wake Up Mission and Truth Talk News, and discover the works of other people, and like Lori Alexander of Exposing Satanic World Government on Facebook. You should check out her page immediately. It's really important stuff. Pam Brendenberg at United Truth Seekers. These are all the right people. Harry Link, Truth Broadcast Network, others that I've mentioned. These are all the real straight shooters that are working hard and getting out the information that nobody wants to believe, nobody wants to pay attention to, and is so vital to our very survival.
And I do think, because I woke up. People who listen to the show know my story. But when I originally took the red pill in 2004, as I went down that rabbit hole, so to speak, and I would start telling fellow activists that, you're crazy, you're a lunatic, But what's really interesting, and especially I would say post-Ron Paul revolution, it seems that more and more people are awake and host shows like ours, or do documentaries, or write. So it feels like we're almost a critical mass. Do you see that?
I absolutely know we're at critical mass, because that's why all of these things like Jade Helm are being practiced. All of these different attacks on our liberty. I mean, even in the mainstream news, NSA, it's like they're spying on us. Okay,
Right.
Well, like the people that were awake didn't know that. It's
we already knew this.
Right. All the sheep will wake up one day. Oh my God, the government's spying on me. What have we been saying for 20 years or whatever it is?
Right. So, Howard, have you always been awake, or was there an incident that woke you up?
That's a great question, Shalene. No, and you see, this is why I work so hard to wake up others, is because I was so wrapped up and so much of a cog in the New World Order wheel. I mean, I was like complicit in my own enslavement, and honestly didn't notice it, didn't realize it, nothing. I come from a background like completely on the left. My father was a union, sort of like a big shot in the International Ladies Garment Workers Union. He was one of the vice presidents in the Northeast Department. And I mean, there's a lot of big people that I've seen in my life. I actually met Jimmy Carter at the White House when I was 10 years old. Yeah. Actually, I was 13 years old. Excuse me. At a Labor Day, they had a Labor Day barbecue, and I remember that the union, it was because of the union. You know, my father went down there. He had a lot of you know, like he's pretty much a big shot, if you want to call it that. And I was just part of it, you know. It's like I never, like, you know, I thought everybody lived this way, you know, pretty much, you know, and you just had this, you know, I happened to be fortunate because my dad had a good job and, you know, all this type of good stuff. But then what ended up really happening at the end of his life, imagine this, 20 years after he retired, Randy, can you imagine that they took away, they cut his life insurance benefits from $150,000 to $50,000. So all of these union officers, oh yeah, so all of these
incredible.
All these union officers that it happened to that were retired. I mean, 20 years after you're retired, right? So they claimed poverty and all this other corruption, and they did all this stuff, and they violated all these laws, but nobody ever went to jail. They just paid fines. You know how it is.
Yeah, like with the banks.
And they ended up settling for 50% just to make a very long story short. But in the end of it was happening. What was happening is that you had this corruption that started to unfold before my eyes, and then my father got sick, and I went through the healthcare system and the end of life thing with him, and it started to all like make sense to me. All these different things. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what the New World Order was, and I was in the middle of it. And it took a little bit of time, a little bit of reflection, and I guess a few people that just said the right things and put me in the right direction to look and start researching. And one of my mantras, and I think it should be the mantra of all of us that are trying to get the truth out, is like, listen, everybody, we all have opinions, and opinions and truth are two totally different things. You know,
right.
Well, whatever,
good point.
Whatever or whatever you're, you know, you don't want whatever you're doing to seem like it has like some sort of an agenda. You just want it to be like sort of objective. Maybe you could put your commentary to it, and if there's something that's that you're not sure about, or you could say, well, I'm not certain about this, but that you know, you really have to give them the real truth, and it'll grow and it'll do like amazing things because people then research it. So the mantra that I say is like, don't believe a word that I'm saying, but listen to every word and research it. Take the time, get away from the television set, get away from the football game, whatever it is, the video game, whatever's distracting you, whatever you're using this recreational time for, and spend a couple of hours researching the things I talk about on this broadcast. And find your own truth. There's only one truth. If you seek, you'll find it. And that's pretty much verbatim what I say, because that's what will help. Because it has to become something that you understand for yourself. It's not just facts. Clearly the facts are there. We have on paper, literally written. Their plans are written on paper. They were written years and years ago, and they're coming true. And how can that be a conspiracy theory?
Exactly. Well, you have everything. We talked about conspiracy theory yesterday. We gave the true definition of conspiracy, which really is fact. And we've talked on this show from everything from the Albert Pike letters of the 1800s to Rockefeller in his own words in his own book to videos of these individuals when they're even being interviewed. They don't hide their agenda, but they use mind control and distractions so effectively that in between the truth, they put all these lies and propaganda, and that, for an unfortunate reason, I guess the lies of Satan, the deception of Satan, that's what they hold on to, the majority.
You said it right there. They're Luciferian. They worship the mystery gods. They worship, and they do it outwardly, and now they've gotten it into the pop culture where it's like, you know, I mean, if you looked at videos lately, like some of these music videos are full of all this Masonic, satanic imagery. It's like beyond your wildest hallucination when you were a kid. You're thinking to yourself, what? You know, this is what, I mean, MTV. Remember, I Want My MTV, you know, Sting.
Right.
Then when we were kids, or at least when I was a kid, I mean, that was MTV. It was like, I don't know, it became this really like sleazy sort of, you know, negative thing. And
well, I mean, it was different back then because we had Guns N' Roses, Poison, and Michael Jackson, but it was fun, and it didn't make you go out and want to do anything. But you're right, now they don't really play music, but when they do, the likes of Lady Gaga or Beyonce, the usual suspects that are there at the top, their videos are insanely. The parents of yesterday had nothing to worry about compared to what is being shown today, and it is very Luciferian, right in your face. And then you have people like Miley Cyrus who comes out, I love the Illuminati. Madonna, oh my gosh, and I loved her when I was a kid. I can't stand her. How do they, this is a question that I've often pondered. How do they coerce people like Jay-Z? Beyonce was once a Christian, for goodness sakes. How do they get these people on board with their end game?
Money.
Well, I think, honestly, if you...
No. It's got to be more than just money. If somebody came up to me and said, hey, I'm going to give you $1 million to worship Satan, I wouldn't do it. Right.
It's a great question because there is documented evidence of various types of, you were talking about mind control earlier, and it's actually apropos because that's what this really is. The whole thing is a huge propaganda mechanism to just get people to pretty much degrade society, demoralize society, make everything goes. Anything that feels good is good. It's that whole thing. And, don't worry about it, that whole thing. And be distracted by all of these distractions that we've been mentioning, TV, whatever else, right? But meanwhile, you have at the root of this whole thing is the grand deception that we're moving as a society towards a culture of death, and it's getting more to be a culture of death, and that goes into this whole idea that the elite are saying, well, we have to do something to depopulate the planet, and like you said, I mean, they speak the words, they say it, they're quoted. We have to do something about this. We got to reduce the population by 90%. People have said. I mean, these people aren't looked at as crazy people. They're like, oh yeah, we have to figure out a way to do this. So
none of them are volunteering. You notice that?
Yeah. Absolutely, Randy, and it's shocking because it's happening, and again, the people are so mind controlled. I'm going back to this is the point of the mind control, is that they're allowing all these things to happen. They're watching this happen before their very eyes, but they're not. It's not affecting them. They're just letting it go. I don't know if you've ever seen a movie which really illustrates this pretty well. It was a movie called Fahrenheit 451. Did you ever see that?
Oh movie? Yes, it's an old movie. Didn't they? I'm not sure if they remade it, but it's an old.
Right, 1964. Francois Truffaut was the director. Julie Christie was this
yes.
robotic human, basically, and who was just obsessed with the television, and it's just very interesting because we have these type of drone-y type people now. And that's what's coming on here. Is like people are not, they're being taught in Common Core, indoctrination. They're being indoctrinated, about now. Listen, this is an interesting thing because this whole thing with everything is a controversy. Everything is an issue. I mean, a flag is an issue. The Confederate flag is an issue now. Last week it was, it's the issue of the weak. That's what we're getting up with, and the intolerable calling intolerance tolerant. It's crazy.
Right. It is insane. So what do we do? Right. So what do we do, Howard? Because they have the power, the money behind them. And let's be frank. It's not the majority that participate. It is a certain groups, whether they're, part of MoveOn.org, George Soros organizations, whatever, unions, whatever.
Those are all front.
They're all front groups, exactly. But how can we?
Who's behind which of the tax-exempt foundations are behind all of this? And you'll find, like, the Ford Foundation is big behind all this whole thing. And you'll find that as far as the education, it's controlled by the Rockefeller and Carnegie endowments. And you'll find that there's this connection to this whole agenda that we've been subjected to. Even NPR, I mean, it was supposed to be public radio, public television is absolutely controlled.
It is.
You can't go on. Look, I want to produce a public radio show about how bankers hijacked our country and have destroyed the Constitution in less than 100 years, or in about 100 years. They haven't destroyed it completely, but no, you can't do that. No way. You can't You can't say anything bad about the bankers. Forget about the Federal Reserve. You can't. They're gods. They are the Olympians. And believe it or not, this is what they believe. They believe that the owners of these most powerful central banks, believe that they are the rulers of the world, and that we basically are mostly just useless eaters that need to be eliminated because we don't need so many of you. In fact, the scary thing about this, guys, is that it's happening now. In 10 years, this is a government report. In 10 years, do you know that 30% of jobs and services will be replaced either by a robot, mechanization, or some other form of artificial technology, or whatever that, artificial intelligence?
Yeah, we reported that on the show here, I think, a couple of weeks ago. So what I want to emphasize here, as Howard is talking, for those of you who are regular listeners of the show, he's saying what we say. So it's not just Randy and I. The facts are out there. Listen to Howard. You go research it. It is there. This is why we didn't call. By the way, just so everybody knows, we didn't call Howard before the show and discuss what to say.
Oh, not at
he
all.
Doesn't know what we say. Exactly.
He's crazy like us.
yeah, we're crazy, right?
Yeah, right.
Listen. Honestly, I don't care if they think I'm crazy. I just want them. They just want them to take the time to look into it, because how can you? Here's a good thing. Here's a challenge to everyone that might be dismissive of this or might be skeptical. How can you be an intelligent human being, an intelligent individual? Okay. Whatever your affiliation, political ideology, whatever it is, you're an intelligent human being. How can you dismiss something without any investigation? How can you come to the conclusion that it's something worth dismissing? Because if you think about the same thing with buying a car, I mean, don't you come to a conclusion? You just dismiss something, or I'm going to buy that car, So it's the same thing. You're dismissing the reality is really what it is. It's like there's truth here, and you're dismissing it. And the reason people are dismissing it is something called cognitive dissonance. And cognitive dissonance is something that was discovered or put into a form of ideology or thought process in the 50s. And I'm trying to remember the guy's name. It'll probably come to me by the time I'm finished talking about it. But what it means is that you've lived your whole life in a certain belief system. We have all been taught whatever ways it is. And then when some information that is radically in contrast or in conflict or changes what could be potentially, really like a life radical change thing, people just can't really handle that. And what they do is they dismiss it and absolutely try to find other ways to rationalize why not to believe it. And you can all look that stuff up too. I'm not making this stuff up. This isn't
John Rappaport talks about this quite frequently in his articles, but also when you think about it, anybody who's been a member, and I've had friends who are members of cults, like real cults, and the process that they went through to remove themselves from that thought process. So you're right. There is something to it. And I want to ask you a question because I find this really fascinating. You're also a contributor to Exposing the Satanic World Government. It's a Christian-based group. And one of the things that you're trying to expose is how they're being used. People are being used to further the ultimate goal of the one world government, which is talked about in the Bible. So I don't know why anybody would think this wouldn't be happening. It's in the Bible. So, but a one world religion, and we're seeing that happen really right before our eyes with the outright really discrimination of Christianity, the uprising of Islam. And that's also what Albert Pike's letters, one of his World Wars, is about.
We can talk about that in detail. I know quite a bit about it. But that's the whole point. They're promoting Islam. It's not just the rise of Islam. They're promoting Islam, and they're allowing Islam to slaughter Christians and not complain. But if something happens on the other side, oh my God, the media has to support. Oh, you can't call them terrorists.
Right.
You behead somebody. A woman is beheaded in Oklahoma City. Oh, it was a workplace violence.
Right.
Who's a Muslim, a black Muslim. Now Al Sharpton's not in the street then.
No.
Nope. Right.
He's in the street. See, it's an agenda. It's anyone who can just lift the veil of evil and see it. Lift the veil so you can see the evil. It's right there. They're stirring up the pot, and these people have been dumbed down by the education system. They've been doped up by the CIA, bringing in drugs from LSD to cocaine, heroin, and to this day. I mean, who's cooking LSD these days? Where do you think it comes? It's out there again. Where's it coming from?
Right, exactly.
Who created it in the first place? Who created the counterculture? The CIA. I mean, I'm not making this stuff up. They created a project called MK Ultra, and we're still in it. MK Ultra. Let's get back to Beyonce. Beyonce, Al Roker, a whole bunch of celebrities have been found on the internet. You can look at this, being in triggered, what's called MK Ultra mind control triggers. So they've been triggered, and you can actually get them on video where they freak out, they freeze like a robot, and then come back in.
Oh wow.
Oh,
Beyonce. I mean, to me, she's the most obvious because
Beyonce in Illuminati trance. Call it this. You can Google this. Beyonce in Illuminati trance at basketball game with handler Jay-Z, because that's what he is. He's her handler. So they're definitely all involved. They're first of all, he's a Freemason, and there's this whole skull and bones aspect here. And other secret societies that are working to bring this about. And yes, they use the celebrities and people in high places are basically, zombies, mind-controlled zombies. And
they're like sleeper agents.
They're sleeper
agents.
And
it's really interesting. It's really interesting you say that.
They really are. I can tell
you. It's really interesting you say that. I was reading a comment. It was a comment from somebody who's like a major, was on social media, a major Beyonce fan, and they said, I've been a fan of hers for years. I don't know who this woman is. And to me, she's the most obvious because when she was young, she was I'm not saying she's not attractive today, but she was beautiful, lovely, sweet, and innocent, and talked about Jesus and had a light about her. That woman, Sasha Fierce, because I think that's the name when that came out.
Right.
That's a completely different woman.
Well, listen, this is what I'm talking about. Shalene, this is what I'm talking about. So she has this altar. It's called an altar, okay? Here's how it works. Okay, this is what MK Ultra is all about, ladies and gentlemen, if you've never heard about it. It's what can be done very, very quickly. In other words, over the course of literally in this time period, it used to take months to mind control people, weeks, all this different types of subjection to different conditions like sleep deprivation and the opposite and all this other stuff, torture. Now they figured it out. They can do it pharmacologically within 3 to 4 days, maybe even less. So like a weekend. So one of these stars can go away on a weekend to this like $10,000 a night resort, and while they're there, they're actually being mind controlled and put into these comas, trauma-based mind control. They're put through trauma, like a very traumatic thing, and then they're sedated. And because it's so traumatic and so horrible that it literally splits their personality, and they become an alter. That's what's called an alter, and an altered personality. So Sasha Fierce is an example of an alter. Britney Spears, you can do it. She did an interview with Diane Sawyer where her alter came to her while she was on the interview. She was triggered. So this stuff is like, you can see it. It happens. It's real. And we're very, very naive to believe that the technology isn't possible at this point when people like Yale, he was a Yale professor in the 1960s that the CIA basically hired to do experiments, Delgado, and they put a microchip basically into a bull, connected it with wires to a box, and with one button, he would make the bull charge and be really angry, and then with another button, the bull stopped and was docile. So I mean,
wow.
Like the kind of stuff that's available, okay, is why I'm concerned for humanity, because it's not going in the way of freedom. They talk freedom but take the rights away. They talk love but make war. They talk peace but make war. And they inflame the society by trying to bring the society together. They distort the society. They divide the society by saying we're going to bring everyone together by keeping them apart. Does that make any sense?
I know. No, it doesn't. So how do they pick the people that they decide that they want to program, and do these people know, are they willing participants?
Well, good question. The answer to that is a couple of things. Some of them have no clue about it at all. Others volunteered. Ted Kaczynski, for example, you know who he is? Remember him?
The bomber, yeah.
Unabomber?
Yes.
The Unabomber, if you remember, was Harvard educated. He went to Harvard in 1960.
Right.
And he was a willing volunteer in the MK Ultra program. And when he was in the MK Ultra program, he did it for a couple of years. And then all of a sudden, I don't know, 10 years later, he finds himself in a cabin in the woods, you know, making bombs and saying how everyone's killing the trees, and that industrialization is the worst thing in the world. Does this sound familiar to like the environmental plan?
Right. Agenda 21. Right. Global. Right. Global warming. Right.
You know, the whole thing with the Agenda 21. All right, and then all of a sudden he's blowing up all these corporate executives and people and all this other. And then it turns out that he was a willing participant in the MK Ultra experiments. So I don't know. I mean, is that a coincidence? It's pretty wild.
Wow.
If you ask me, to not.
It is very wild. Yeah.
Right.
And then they use them. They definitely steer them into a different direction. That's for sure. And use them to make society godless, which they need in order to fully implement tyranny. Because innately people do want to follow something. They're always looking and seeking. And if you don't find God, you're going to look for some false God. And they know that. Speaking
like with Alice Bailey and like the Lucis Trust, and you know, she wrote books about it. It's another Satanist that basically has an alternate view, you know, this whole New Age view. And this is back in the 30s or whatever it was. And she's another one that just plans it out. I mean, this whole thing is a Masonic. There's a lot of Masonry in it, Freemasonry, different secret societies, and they're all working for this, you know, one world system that the people at the top are going to benefit for. The people at the bottom are going to be, you know, left to rot, basically.
Yeah, it's like a pyramid scheme.
It is. Yeah, it really is. Randy, it is a pyramid scheme.
Yeah, literally and figuratively.
Yep.
While we're on this subject, Howard, hold on one second, Randy. While we're on this subject, Howard, do you believe that the Antichrist is I mean, we know that there's going to be more than one Antichrist, I mean, according to the Bible, but the Antichrist that, you know, do you believe that that person's born and living on earth?
You know, that's a good question because, you know, by the way that the times are going, if you ask me personally, you know, my feeling about it, my gut feeling is that, you know, I don't know. It could be this time. There's something that took a person like myself that was like, you know, again, I'm not like a you know, like a holy roller type religious person. I am very faithful. I believe in Jesus Christ as my Savior, but I'm not like I understand the hypocrisy of religion, and I expose the evils of the Catholic Church. And speaking of the Catholic Church, the great people of the Catholic Church, but I'm talking about the hierarchy and their motivations. They are now just off the charts, freaking me out. With what?
Oh my gosh, with the Pope.
Yeah.
Well, they've always been, and we want to make sure because I have members.
Oh, no, I'm telling you,
I'm not Catholic, but we have members. I have family. I have family who are Catholic and friends who are Catholic. So it's not the members. They don't realize that their hierarchy, just like you said, are completely different. They've been part of the New World Order since the very beginning. And there's right.
Do you know that there are satanic altars in the great cathedrals, below the great cathedrals of most of the great cathedrals of Europe that were built by the Masons? There was during the. Well, let's go over this real quick, and then we'll go into this. You just continue. I'm sorry to cut you off, but it's important. In the 1940s, during the World War II, right? You had Hitler was bombing the shit out of everything, and the English people, they were getting hurt pretty bad, right? Interestingly enough, the Catholic churches, the Vatican, the Catholic churches, Rome, I mean, Italy was plummeted, right? And there was nothing happened to them. They messed up a little in Denmark, and they hit a couple of churches, and when they were restoring the churches, they found alternate altars underneath the altar of God. It's you can find this information. It's out there. Yep, and I believe.
Well, then the Pope coming out, Howard, and saying any gun manufacturer is not a Christian. I mean, wow.
Well, no, he's a communist. I mean, as a person, he's a communist. That's the other thing. I mean, remember, this guy's a person too. You know, I mean, we always forget that these people, you know, they get eaten up and maddened by the power, but they're, you know, they have their own personal beliefs, like Obama, another communist, Marxist.
Right.
You know. Unbelievable, but this is what they've been doing. They've been working on this for a long time. You know, it goes back to the creation of the United Nations and this whole plan. I mean, Alger Hiss was the first General Secretary of the United Nations. Alger Hiss! He's a war criminal Nazi. It's unbelievable.
Right.
Nazis were brought into our government at that time through Operation Paperclip, same year that they created the CIA. Nazi technology has been used, and there's medical technology, a eugenics program. Now, I'm just going to say one thing, because tomorrow on my show, for folks that might want to tune in, Thursdays 3 to 5 on UnitedFMRadio.com, I'm doing a show with, my guest is going to be Janet Phelan, and we're going to be talking about the depopulation program and going into this whole aspect of it. So that just happens to be the topic for tomorrow. I thought I would just...
That's perfect. And that is Eastern time, correct?
At Eastern time, yes. 3 to 5 Eastern, so that's 12 to 2 Pacific, right? Yeah. You're on the West Coast, right?
Yeah, I am. Randy is on the East Coast like you, but our show is 4 p.m. Pacific, you're right. And any other, by the way, any other links, sites you'd like to plug right now before we continue?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, sure, absolutely. Since I'm in this, if you could just Google, you'll get everything you'll need to know. Just Google Truth Talk News, howardnema.com. Truth Talk News is on YouTube, and there's a Truth Talk News live channel. There's 2 channels. And if you, like I said, if you just put in Truth Talk News in your search engine, you won't believe how much stuff you'll get there. I've done over 500 broadcasts. I've got 900 videos. It's out there. I've been doing this for quite a while. And everything that I do, first I research, and then and then I report, and that's what I'm just asking others to do, is just do, because I think you're right. We can hit this critical mass if people can just take off the blinders. Listen, I'm going to tell you how you feel. Right now you're feeling like, listen, I really sort of believe this, but my friends are going to think I'm a fucking nut. They're going to think I'm out of my mind. I'm not going to tell anybody about this, but I know, you know what? I'm going to keep it to myself because I know it's true, because this is what happened to me. And then little by little, more and more, you get a little bit more courage, more and more. It's sort of like, a little bit more. And because you get angry, because things continue to go in that direction. And then you say, you know what, I'm going to talk about that thing I didn't say I was going to talk about, and fuck it, what the hell is going to happen? And next thing you know, you get into this thing, and then you start doing rants, and you just start go, and you don't really care, because in the end, ladies and gentlemen, if you're worried about what people think about you, forget about it. There's more problems in the world, and who do you know that these people, what are they going to think? They don't, I get...
Not only that, worrying about what people think about you.
Yeah, in Taiwan. I mean, come on, think about it. But if they catch it and they get it, then I've hit another. I've struck another chord. And if I keep saying,
and what I always say, Howard, is anybody who's worried about what they think, if you worry about what people think about you, you're living in oppression. That's not freedom. To live your life. And I was only laughing because Randy and I went through that exact same metamorphosis. So that's why I was laughing. It is so true. In the beginning, you're like, oh my God, people are going to think I'm a whack job. And then after a while, you're right. You're like, I don't care what anybody thinks. This is the truth.
Yep.
Right. And that's how this happened to me. Ask me how this whole thing with me, but that's what happened. Little by little, more and more I came out. I remember I was totally horrified. I couldn't even, look, I was so afraid to say that there's a world global depopulation program. I was just like, because that sounds so fucking nuts, I can't even tell you. I mean, from the outside to say, you mean that the big pharma is actually giving people cancer intentionally, and there are other ailments, and the vaccines actually are causing other neurological problems and other problems? And you mean you mean that my doctor's bad? What? No, your doctor's not bad, but the higher. But it's the system. The system is bad. The system is evil. No, it's not bad. It's evil.
Yeah, it's demonic. It's demonic. So, Randy, I know you had a question. I didn't mean to cut you off there, but I really wanted to get that Antichrist question in because, Howard, I remember this was, I don't know, about 15 years ago. Yeah, because about 15 years ago, I was listening to some journalist who's a Christian, and I can't remember what his name, but he was on a local Christian talk radio show, and he was filling in, and he said, look, I live in the Middle East. I'm telling you, in my lifetime, and he had to have been at least a decade older than me, maybe more, and he said, in my lifetime, I'm telling you, based on what the prophecy I see being fulfilled here in the Middle East, the Antichrist is going to reveal himself. And that was 15 years ago. And the guy was not a whack job. I mean, he was very well informed, and he was a working, journalist over in the Middle East. So he was very interesting.
You have to ask yourself why there would be such a powerful movement to go against biblical tradition, the Judeo-Christian way of life, morality, and all of this, and to, profess that you yourself are God, this whole Gaia thing, the earth, and all of these New Age things. This is all Luciferianism. I mean, the elite believe that Adam and Eve were actually unrightly, kicked out of the Garden of Eden because God was denying them the fruit, right?
Yeah.
So their aspect is that God was a vindictive and cruel God who didn't allow them to have the freedom and free will. So that's the whole concept, and knowledge, and they were denied the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil.
Wow. But Satan's going to deny them life and give them eternal death. So I guess that's freedom to them. It doesn't make any sense, does it?
Well, that's what the Luciferians and the Masonic tradition. Those at the top of the Freemasonry, the secret of Freemasonry, as you know, with Albert Pike, is
right.
Lucifer is God, the one and only God. Adonai is Lucifer.
Yeah.
And he had he's written many books, including Morals and Dogma, where he goes into it in detail. And the Great Letter, of course, which, interestingly enough, let's talk about that letter from Giuseppe Mazzini from Albert Pike to Giuseppe Mazzini, talking about the 3 world wars.
Right.
The First World War, okay, this is from 1871. The First World War would be to basically bring in Bolshevism and to crush the monarchies. And that worked. And then
it worked.
It definitely worked. Now there's the conspiracy theory that they try to promulgate and say, oh, these nuts, it's not, and this is how the through the media and all the propaganda that they tell us. But they refuse to look at the truth that in 1925, at the latest, or earliest, however you want to look at it, this letter, or talk of this letter, was buzzing around discussion long before World War II.
Wow.
Right? And it was actually housed in the British Museum for a short period of time and then was removed. Probably.
Wow. Probably, right. And
that's when it happened. And they were talking about it in newsprint or whatever, discussing this whole concept of this letter being a critical document, and all this other bullshit. Because of course Giuseppe Mazzini was Illuminati and created the mafia, or was the key component behind the actual mafia that we know of, the families, the different families in the mafia. That was the whole idea came out of Sicily, as you know. This is all history. It's all history. It's all real. And you'll find it out if you just research it and say, wow, I would never think that. And there's a mention of this and that. And then you look at the bloodlines. Oh, my God, it's ridiculous.
Right.
I mean,
exactly.
All related.
And then here we are with the Third World War, obviously already set into motion with the whole,
Yeah, the Jews to destroy the Muslims to destroy the Jews. That's
right.
That's the idea.
And that's what we're seeing today. Randy, we only have 2 minutes left, my dear. I know you had a question, so what was it, Randy?
Well, Howard, you were talking about mind control. I don't know if we'll have time, but
I can go over if you need to. I can.
Well, our broadcast stream, it'll
our broadcast is good, and we only have 2 minutes left. So, Randy, what's your question?
Okay. Magazine called Nuts and Bolts. In 1994, I read an article about the SDI, Strategic Defense Initiative, supposed to build a, kind of like a dome to protect the U.S. from ICBMs coming in from Russia. Actually, they uncovered that entire program was a front for mind control with radio waves of the entire population of, of the country. And that's when I started seeing things. You ever heard?
Hello?
Yeah, he asked if she's choking over there. So have you ever heard of that program before?
I have, yeah. This is all part of the MK Ultra, and then what went under black. I don't know what you would call it now. Just like you can't really name the New World Order, they don't really have a name.
Right.
Carol Quigley wrote Tragedy and Hope, and he calls it the Milner Group or the Milner Kindergarten. That's a great book. Everybody should read Tragedy and Hope, which says that the bankers should rule the world, and they're working to do it and control the political systems of the entire world. The book was written in '66. Come true, and it's continuing to come true, and he found nothing wrong with it. He thought it should be run this way, but their ultimate goal is of course to populate the planet, bring in their satanic world government, and destroy all the faiths of the world except for theirs, and whatever you want to call it, Luciferianism, Satanism, Gaiaism, it's all the same shit.
Yes, it is. It's been Howard Nema, Truth Talk News. You are welcome back, Howard, anytime. I really want you to keep in touch with us. Appreciate everything today. You've been wonderful and just confirming everything we say. So we'll be back tomorrow. We're sorry we're out of time for the show. Tomorrow it's Thursdays with just Randy and I. No guests tomorrow, and we'll be wrapping up our whole entire week of what we discussed.
Thank you for spending your time with us on the Wake Up Mission Show. Welcome back to the Wake Up Mission Show.
Well, today we are very honored to have the host of Truth Talk News. Howard Nema is a radio host, writer, videographer, musician, and the co-founder of We Are Change Connecticut. And I like We Are Change, at least here in California, We Are Change really backed our Nightingale 2010 campaign for governor. Howard is also a contributor to Exposing Satanic World Government. Very fascinated and interested in what he has to say about that. His YouTube channels have received more than 100,000 views per month, and he currently broadcasts live every Thursday, so that's tomorrow, 3 to 5 p.m., and we'll find out if that's Eastern, which I believe it is, Eastern time. Here we are. Howard, thank you so much for being on our show today. We really appreciate having you here. Howard? Well, I see him on the board, but for some reason, I'm not hearing him. So, Randy, see, my co-host disappeared. The guest has disappeared. So I don't know where everybody is. So we'll just talk. I thought that the Bjork song was very apropos for today. The double meaning there, of course, not only declaring your independence, but the Confederate flag being such an issue. No, it's a false flag. And I say raise your flags, raise them up high, because like we just said, the death of America really did happen today. So since Howard is gone, and I guess when he comes back we'll bring him on. Go ahead then, Randy. What is your business news?
Well, I don't know what's going on with the system. He was on. We did a check. Everything sounded good, and he was red on the board. I don't know why. Couldn't hear him.
I don't know, but anyway, it doesn't matter. Let's just go ahead and what business news do you have that you would like to share until he comes back?
Oh, okay, sure, no problem. Well, let's see. You know, the other day I talked about, you know, there's the very real possibility that China would demand.
Randy, I don't know where you went. This is crazy. This must be Blog Talk. Some Blog Talk issues, perhaps? Randy? Well, okay, there you are. That's so funny. What is going on here? Maybe it's because, hey, who knows? Maybe they're trying to sabotage today's show. They don't want the truth to get out there. I don't know. I'm not saying Blog Talk is doing it, but maybe there's some sort of interference.
And it's like the damn board has gone crazy.
I know. I don't know what it's doing. I'm watching it, too. None of you can see it, but just to let you know, it's like there's a little ghost in the machine here. The mics are going hot, that we're going blue, and not hot, and we're not even pushing anything. So it is very bizarre. We had Howard here, then he went away. I tried to bring him in. I don't know what happened there.
He's back. He's back now.
Okay, Howard, can you hear us now? We already gave you the introduction. We've already done that.
I heard you like a clear bell, but you couldn't hear me. It doesn't surprise me. I don't know. This has happened to me quite a bit with people that I've interviewed, you know, and sort of the stuff that I do. It's weird. They do. I do have sort of an issue with the COINTELPRO. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but it still exists.
We talked about it yesterday on the show. Yeah.
Yeah. This is a big issue. Again, I'm friends with people like, I don't know, Dr. Leonard Horowitz and Sherry Kane and others that are really working to expose the COINTELPRO and people like, Alex Jones and others, Anthony J. Hilder. There's a lot of them. And what they're doing is they're controlling it's a controlled opposition to the truth movement. Now, these are just friends of mine. I became friends by interviewing them. I interviewed these people maybe like 10, 20 times each. I don't know, something like that. I've been doing this since about 2010 pretty intensively. And yeah, there is definitely a history. You can just go through the archives at Truth Talk News and just put in, hacked broadcast, hacked Truth Talk News, hacked Truth Talk News, sabotaged. It happens constantly. So it doesn't surprise me that now that I'm going on another place, that they would play this kind of a game, because I'm one of the people that they look at.
Me too. When I ran for governor, they used to take down our website all the time.
Truth Broadcast Network, others that I've mentioned. These are all the real straight shooters that are working hard and getting out the information that nobody wants to believe, nobody wants to pay attention to, and is so vital to our very survival.
And I do think, because I woke up. People who listen to the show know my story. But when I originally took the red pill in 2004, as I went down that rabbit hole, so to speak, and I would start telling fellow activists that, you're crazy, you're a lunatic, But what's really interesting, and especially I would say post Ron Paul revolution, it seems that more and more people are awake and host shows like ours or do documentaries or write. So it feels like we're almost a critical mass. Do you see that?
I absolutely know we're at critical mass, because that's why all of these things like Jade Helm are being practiced. All of these different attacks on our liberty. I mean, even in the mainstream news, NSA, it's like they're spying on us. Okay,
Right.
Well, like the people that were awake didn't know that. It's
yeah, we already knew this.
Right. All the sheep will wake up one day. Oh my God, the government's spying on me. What have we been saying for 20 years or whatever it is?
Right. So, Howard, have you always been awake, or was there an incident that woke you up?
That's a great question, Shalene. No, and you see, this is why I work so hard to wake up others, is because I was so wrapped up and so much of a cog in the New World Order wheel. I was
fine. Our webmaster, I know, listens to the show. They do whatever they want. You're right. Interference is a real issue, and we've experienced it too. Yeah.
We were just streaming, like music and whatever else. Or when the music's streaming, nothing ever happens. So
right.
It's like it's just such a same thing with Skype, everything else, all of this stuff, interference. Crazy things have happened on live broadcasts, and I've gone on the record with this many times. I've been hit with some sort of neurological weapons that actually, imagine this, Shalene, that you're about to think of something that, a thought that's coming into your mind that you're going to verbalize, right? And all of a sudden, just like an eraser on a blackboard, it's just erased right in front of your eyes, and you don't remember what you were thinking. They hit me with it. It was intense, and it's on. Actually, it happened during a broadcast, during a live stream broadcast, which was video broadcast, and that's also in the archives. I mean, it's all on record. The stuff they've done. I mean, incredible stuff. Different type of low frequency weapons, ELF weapons, and all sorts of things that they do. The chemtrails are also targeting people.
Right.
That you'll notice if you're an activist, and you'll shake your head because you'll wonder why every time that there's a chemtrail, it's flying over your house. You'll wonder why. How can that be? Now, if you think I'm crazy, you people think I'm crazy, anybody out there, I challenge you to research the information that's discussed on shows like The Wake Up Mission and Truth Talk News, and discover the works of other people, and the like Lori Alexander of Exposing Satanic World Government on Facebook. You should check out her page immediately. It's really important stuff. Pam Brendenberg at United Truth Seekers. These are all the right people. Harry